Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Good morning, Vietnam.
Great movie.
Some of you might be listening from Vietnam. I don't know. I don't check geography stats on our
Turned
show.
into a love story, but whatever.
Never seen it. But
Williams?
Robin Williams movies are not that great.
That one was.
Outside of like two.
Yeah, but that one was. It was a radio host in Vietnam.
Yeah, I get it. I know what it is about.
Oh.
Today, we're covering quite possibly the biggest traitor to the United States of America since
Robert E. Lee.
since
Since
Benedict Arnold himself.
Aaron Burr.
He wasn't even in the United States of America yet. But, yeah, Aaron Burr tried to do some shit too. But this guy, for real, a traitor.
And what's his face? Brigham Young.
No. Because this guy, John Cabell Breckinridge, was the 14th Vice President of the United States.
Sure the fuck was
a presidential candidate, ran against Lincoln, and then defected to the Confederate States of America, the true definition of a traitor to the nation. How this dude ever got pardoned is beyond me, but we'll get to there. He's got a long story.
But they wouldn't pardon.
Well, eventually they all got pardoned, but they wouldn't do it at first.
Right.
As usual, we start at the very beginning. John Cabell Breckinridge, he was born January 16th, 1821 at his family's estate, Thornhill, near Lexington, Kentucky. A Kentucky guy, huh?
Yeah.
He was the fourth of six kids and the only son of Joseph Cabell Breckinridge and Mary Clay Smith Breckinridge. Oh, B. Well, speaking of his mama, her side of the family had some impressive roots, as she was the daughter of Samuel Stanhope Smith. He's the man who founded Hampton-Sydney College all the way back in 1775. Plus, she's the granddaughter of John Witherspoon, one of the guys who actually signed the Declaration of Independence.
I wouldn't go in there in about 35 to 45 minutes.
Something stinks there. I don't know what happened. That makes John Breckinridge an even bigger traitor. That his granddaddy, or his great-granddaddy, signed the Declaration of Independence.
Right. Holy shit. Wow. Well, his daddy, Cabell Breckinridge, he wasn't exactly obscure either. He'd already served as Speaker of the Kentucky House of Rep. And just before John was born, he got appointed as Kentucky's Secretary of State. Well, because of that, in February of 1821, the Breckinridge family packed up their shit and they said, you know what? We're going to the governor's mansion in Frankfort, baby, alongside Governor John Adair.
Well, just 2 years later, though, August 1823, as usually does in this era, things take a rough turn. A wave of sickness swept through Frankfurt. People, they called it the prevailing fever.
Oh, no. Just didn't go away.
To be safe, Cabell Breckinridge took the kids back to stay with his mom in Lexington. When he returned home, both he and his wife caught the illness.
Son of a bitch.
Tragically, Cabell, he didn't survive. Though Mary did.
It's unusual.
His finances weren't in great shape either. His assets couldn't cover his debts. So Mary and the kids ended up living in Lexington, supported by his mom. Oh, wow. She's got this whole family. What happened there?
Wow. Well, when they were there in Lexington, young John, he went to Pisgah Academy over in Woodford County. His old grandmommy played a big role in his early education as well. She passed down the political ideas of her late husband, Johnny Boy, who had been a United States Senator and Attorney General under Thomas Jefferson. Oh, look at this guy.
Right.
Love it. Back in 1798, he had also introduced the Kentucky Resolutions, that stressed that states' rights and put forward the idea of nullification in response to the Alien and Sedition Acts. You guys remember those acts? Pretty heavy stuff for a kid to be raised on, right? Instantly, politics, nonstop. Oh, jeez.
1832, when John was about 11, there was a falling out between his mom and grandmother.
I mean, it was going to happen sooner or later.
That led to his mom, John, and his sister, Letitia, to move to Danville, Kentucky. They went to live with his older sister, Frances, and her husband, John C. Young, who just so happened to be president of Center College. John also had an uncle there, William Breckinridge, teaching on the faculty at the college.
Why is it spelled like French?
Yeah. So it was kind of a natural that John enrolled in Center College in November of 1834. Why wouldn't you?
I mean, it makes sense, right? Well, he wasn't exactly hanging out with the new buddies. His classmates include former Governor Beriah Magoffin.
Or future.
future governor Beriah Magoffin, abolitionist William Birney, poet and soldier Theodore O'Hara, Union General Thomas Crittenden, and you also had Jeremiah Boyle.
All right, Jeremiah.
He was a local class clown.
Right.
John did well. He earned his Bachelor of Arts degree in September of 1838.
That tells you everything you need to know.
Right? Instead of heading it straight home, though, he said, you know what? I'm going to spend the winter as a resident graduate at the College of New Jersey. Go see if that devil's really real. Right? So that's what we know now as Princeton University. He came back to Kentucky in the mid-1839. He started studying law under Judge William Owsley. 1840 November, he stepped it up a notch. He enrolled in the second year of the law course at Transylvania University in Lexington. He wanted to be a lawyer for the vampires. There, he studied under some big legal minds. Isn't the real Transylvania that they talk about, like in Poland or something like that?
It's in Romania.
Yeah, Romania. Yes. Not Poland.
It's the one guy, Ivan the Terrible.
Yes. There, at Transylvania University in Lexington, Kentucky, he studied under some big legal minds, the likes of George Robertson, Thomas A. Marshall. This is from the Kentucky Court of Appeals. So he's got some big names he's got to learn from. Good for him.
And it all paid off quickly. It's February 25th, 1841, Breckinridge, he received his Bachelor of Laws degree. Very next day, he was licensed to practice law. After finishing law school, Breckinridge stayed put in Lexington for a while. He's trying to figure out where exactly to launch his career at. What's a good place? Where's a bunch of criminals at?
Right.
He borrowed law books from none other than John Crittenden.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the father of his old classmate Thomas. And he did that to keep up his studies.
You got to do something right.
But Lexington, they had a big problem. Way too many lawyers.
Yeah.
The place was overcrowded with them, and Breckinridge, he realized it wasn't the best spot to start fresh. So he tried moving to Frankfort instead. Trouble was, he couldn't even find office space there.
Oh, wow.
To top it off, he'd just been turned down by a love interest. So
No.
that disappointment pushed him to try something bold. He dated guys. October 10th, 1841, Breckinridge and his former classmate Thomas Bullock, they packed up and set off for the Iowa Territory, chasing bigger and better opportunities.
Right. They said, we're going to go field some corn. Along the way, they considered settling down in Jacksonville, not Florida, but this is in Illinois. This is where Breckinridge actually had inherited some land. But once they got there, they noticed the local legal scene was already stacked with talent. Guys like Stephen A. Douglas, Abraham Lincoln. Not exactly an easy crowd to compete with. So they pressed on, and they eventually landed in the little town in Burlington, Iowa. By the winter of 1842,
They started making coats.
Right. By the winter of 1842, 1843, Breckinridge, he was writing home that his law firm was handling more cases than just about anyone else in Burlington. He's building momentum and money.
All right.
Good for him, right?
Well, this period also shaped his politics. Under the influence of Bullock and people of Iowa, Breckinridge started identifying with the Democratic Party.
It's crazy in Iowa.
By February of 1843, he'd already been named to the Democratic Committee of Des Moines County. This is a pretty big deal because most of the Breckinridge family back in Kentucky were diehard Whigs.
Yeah, makes sense.
In fact, when his uncle, William Breckinridge, found out John had gone Democrat, he was horrified.
Oh, no.
He said, I felt as I would have done if I heard that my daughter had been dishonored, meaning banged before marriage.
Right. Damn.
Jeez, dude.
Wow. It's May, and it's 1843. Breckinridge, he came back to old Kentucky for a visit. While he was there, he tried to smooth things over between him, his mother, and the rest of the Breckinridge clan. He's like, come on, mama. That's the only family we got. Well, that kept him in the state longer than he had planned because these sons of bitches held a grudge.
Right.
Well, and then while he was there, he caught the flu. Deciding it was wiser to avoid Iowa's harsher climate, he stuck around for the summer. And that decision ended up changing his life forever. Because during that visit, he met Mary Serene Birch, Bullock's cousin. Oh. By September, so he's never met her before? Wow.
Apparently not.
By September, the two were engaged. Damn, it works quick. The next month, Breckinridge returned briefly to Iowa. Yeah, I got to go wrap up some stuff over here by my law practice. And I'm going to come back to Kentucky, he said. And he teamed up with Samuel Bullock himself, another cousin of Thomas. And they joined a law
Thomas is like, what the fuck, dude?
Right. December 12th, 1843, John C. Breckinridge and Mary Serene Birch were married. They settled down in Georgetown, Kentucky. They eventually raised 6 kids. Joseph, born in 1844. Clifton, born in 1846, who later became congressman from Arkansas. Francis, born in 1848. John was born in 1849. And John Witherspoon was born in 1850. Mary, she was born in 1854.
With growing confidence as a lawyer, Breckinridge decided to move his family back to Lexington in 1845. He's got a little bit of a bigger name. Maybe he can do something.
Right.
There, he formed a new partnership with James B. Beck.
Oh.
He'd later go on to serve as a U.S. Senator.
Yeah.
When the Mexican-American War broke out, John, he was all for it.
Damn right he was.
He tried to land a spot on the staff of Major General William Orlando Butler, who was not only leading a Kentucky Democrat, but also a big name in national politics.
Well, I mean, makes sense.
The only position Butler could offer him, though, was an unpaid aide role. And he actually advised Breckinridge to turn it down. He said, this is not good for you, bud.
You're beneath this, bud. So Breckinridge, he didn't step away from the public life. In July of 1847, he gave a powerful address at a mass military funeral in Frankfort. He honored the Kentuckians who had been murdered at the Battle of Buena Vista. The speech struck a deep chord. Senator Henry Clay, whose own son had died that very battle, he was moved to tears.
Wow.
And the oration inspired Breckinridge's old classmate, Theodore O'Hara. Theodore said, you know what? I'm going to write what will become the most famous poem ever. The Bivouac of the Dead.
Camping.
Yep, Camping of the Dead.
Yep, not long after that, Breckinridge again tried to secure a military commission. August 31st, 1847, Governor William Owsley, who was a Whig, he called for 2 additional regiments of troops.
Gotta have them.
Owsley's advisors told him it would be smart to commission at least 1 Democrat.
All right.
And Whig Senator John Crittenden threw his support behind old Breckinridge's application. He said, I know that kid.
Right.
He borrowed a couple books. Matter of fact,
Right.
get him down here.
Right.
He owes me those books that I borrowed him about 3 years ago.
Wow, it worked out because on the 6th of September, 1847, Owsley named Manlius V. Thompson, Colonel. Thomas Crittenden, Lieutenant Colonel. And you guessed it, old John Breckinridge himself, Major of the 3rd Kentucky Infantry Regiment. This regiment left Kentucky on the 1st of November and has made his way all the way to Veracruz by the 21st. That's not too bad.
20 days.
But trouble was waiting. Veracruz was hit with a severe outbreak of yellow fever, known as La Vomito.
La Vomito, I mean they're throwing up all over the damn place.
To avoid this fever, the regiment marched quickly inland toward Mexico City.
Let's get the hell out of here.
Breckinridge showed real leadership on that very journey. Reports say that he walked nearly the entire way, every day but 2. So he did that tired soldiers could use his horse.
Oh, good guy. By the time the regiment reached Mexico City, December 18th, the war over, basically.
All right.
They didn't see any combat. Instead, they served as an occupying force until May 30th, 1848.
Which is still just as good.
During that time, Breckinridge's skills as a lawyer ended up being more valuable than his limited military experience.
Okay.
He was tapped as assistant counsel for General Gideon Johnson Pillow. We've heard of him. Who was facing a court of inquiry brought against him by General Winfield Scott. We've heard of him.
Yeah.
Well, now Pillow and his allies, they were trying to undercut Scott's presidential ambitions.
Uh-oh.
They went so far as to ghostwrite and publish letters praising Pillow and not Scott for the American victories at Contreras and Churubusco.
Oh, really?
To cover his tracks, Pillow convinced a subordinate to take the blame for one of the letters he himself had written.
Oh, wow. Breckinridge's biographer, William C. Davis, he later wrote that it was most unlikely that Breckinridge knew about these backroom intrigues. His actual role in the court was pretty minimal. He only even questioned a few witnesses. That's about it. Records show that Pillow mostly represented himself. The regiment came home the very next summer, and they returned to Louisville on the 16th of July in 1848. And the 3rd Kentucky Infantry officially mustered out just a few days later. And that happened on the 21st of July. In the end, though, the regiment of about 1,000 men, they've lost over 100 to illnesses, and not even battle.
Not even battle.
Damn.
I mean, it sums up pretty much every war back then, probably.
Right.
Breckinridge, though he may not have seen the combat, but his service still gave him something valuable. Military credentials.
Yeah.
And that, as it turned out, would help him down the road when his political career really began to take shape. By the mid-40s, John Breckinridge was already dipping his toes into politics. Yes.
Nice.
In 1844 presidential race, he campaigned for Democrat James K. Polk.
Oh, worked out.
He even considered running for county clerk of Scott County.
Oh, that's nice.
But his law partner pushed back, saying Breckinridge was spending too much time on politics and not enough time on this damn practice. So I'm done taking 100 cases.
Wow.
Breckinridge, he said, all right, buddy.
The itch for the politics never really went away. 1845, some local Democrats encouraged him to run for Congress in the Kentucky's 8th District. He said, nah, I don't want to do that. And so he threw support behind Alexander Keith Marshall. And Marshall ended up losing the race.
That's right, because he would have lost the race too.
Right. Even outside of office, Breckinridge was making his political views very clear. When the Wilmot Proviso came out, a proposal to ban slavery in any territory gained from the Mexican-American War, he was like, oh, hell no.
Funny enough, though,
right.
It didn't say that they owned slaves.
1848 presidential election, he backed Democrat Lewis Cass and William Butler. As we all know, that ticket lost. But interestingly enough, Breckinridge, he didn't even vote.
Well, years later, in 1860, he explained why his decision. During a speech in Lexington, he told the story. He'd been out with 6 or 7 Whig friends. They proposed that if he didn't ride back to his hometown and vote for Cass, they wouldn't vote for Whig candidate Zachary Taylor.
Oh.
Breckinridge agreed, and instead of voting, the group went hunting. As he joked, every man done as well as myself. We should have carried the state by 40,000 majority.
Wow. Well, then came the big step into elected office. Because in August 1849, Kentuckians were choosing delegates for a new state constitutional convention, as well as a new representative and senators. Well, Breckinridge's uncles, William and Robert, they were abolitionists. Oh, that's nice. And they joined with Cassius Marcellus Clay to push forward candidates who shared their anti-slavery stance. Pro-slavery citizens rallied back with their own state of candidates. And on that,
it's funny that Muhammad Ali, his name was Cassius Clay, named after Cassius Clay, but that's my slave name, dude. This dude literally was an abolitionist.
Right. Pro-slavery citizens rallied back with their own state of candidates. On that list was John Breckinridge, running for one of Fayette County's 2 seats in the Kentucky House of Reps. Get that shit, boy.
By this point, Breckinridge enslaved 5 people himself. Oh, there we go. And he publicly opposed impairing in any form the legal protections of slavery.
Oh.
Yeah, there were contradictions in his life. He was both a Freemason and a member of Lexington's First Presbyterian Church.
Oh, impossible.
2 institutions that officially opposed slavery.
Right.
He had also represented free black clients in court, supported voluntary emancipation, and backed the Kentucky Colonization Society, which advocated for relocating freed black Americans to Liberia.
Oh, yeah. In the election, Breckinridge, he won decisively. He polled in 1,481 votes, more than 400 more than his nearest competitor.
So 401 more.
Right. It was a milestone. This is the first time ever that Fayette County had sent a Democrat to the state legislature. Between that victory and the start of the session, his life shifted again. His law partner died earlier in the year during the cholera outbreak. So old Johnny Boy, he formed a new partnership with George Kincaid, who had previously served as Secretary of State under Governor Owsley. Look, he got some bigwigs up in here. He also co-founded a Democratic newspaper, which they all were doing, I guess.
Gotta get your views out.
Check out my OnlyFans.
Basically. Subscribe to my Twitter page.
Right. He called the Kentucky Statesman. Around this very time, he paid a visit to his step-cousin, Mary Todd Lincoln. You guessed it. And he met her husband, old Abe himself, for the very first time. Well, they had many political differences, but the 2 men became fast friends.
Step-cousin, huh? Right. When the Kentucky House convened, Breckinridge actually received a plurality of votes to be Speaker.
Okay.
But he couldn't quite cross the finish line. He fell about 8 votes short of a majority. Eventually, he withdrew, and the gavel went to Whig candidate Thomas Riley instead. Even without the speakership, Breckinridge emerged as a leader. Biographer Frank Heck, he later wrote that he was essentially the head of the House Democratic Caucus that session.
All right.
The legislative agenda itself wasn't earth-shattering. Most of the bills were small and local, but Breckinridge made his mark. He served on the standing committees for both federal relations and the judiciary, and he even supported bills funding internal improvements, which was usually a Whig position.
Nope, usually is. Well, nationally, the debate was all about slavery. in the new territories. Henry Clay was pushing his compromise of 1850, which wasn't a compromise at all. The Whigs on the Federal Relations Committee in the Kentucky's House, well, they introduced resolutions urging the state's congressional delegation. They wanted them to support the compromise as a fair, equitable, and just basis for resolving the issue. I mean, come on now, it's fair. I mean, it's basic, right? I mean, it's just easy stuff. Don't ever have to change too much. Breckinridge thought that the language was too vague. He responded with a minority report.
Oh, no.
That directly denied federal authority to interfere with slavery in either states nor territories.
Or territories, yeah.
Yeah.
Nor is a little different than or, but
It's the same.
it's not.
In the end, neither his report, the Whig resolutions, nor a third set from the Senate went anywhere. They were all tabled. They're like,
Let's table
yeah,
that.
we'll circle back. We're going to circle back on these and never will. We had to build a fire.
Well, then, as usual, something that is bound to happen in one of these episodes we cover of these guys. Tragedy comes. March 4th, 1850, just 3 days before the legislative session ended. Breckinridge, he'd had to take a leave of absence to care for his young son, John, who had fallen ill. 2 weeks later, March 18th, the boy died.
The boy, just got to say the boy, that's it.
To cope with his grief, Breckinridge kept himself as busy as possible. He threw himself into advocating for the proposed state constitution, speaking at meetings across Kentucky. His only real issue with the document was that it lacked a clear process for amendments, and in May, the Constitution was overwhelmingly ratified. Okay.
Oh. Democrats, well, they wanted to nominate him for re-election to the House, but Breckinridge is like, I'm good. He goes, I got too much shit going on. He goes, there's too much private shit. It's imperative. I gotta take care of it. His biographer, William Davis, he put it plainly. Beyond the ongoing sadness of losing his son, Breckinridge was struggling financially. As everybody was, right?
Okay.
1851, John Breckinridge was just beginning to rise on the political stage. On January 8th, he served as a delegate of Kentucky State Democratic Convention, which nominated Lazarus Powell for governor. Oh, good for you, Lazarus. Just a week later, Breckinridge announced his own run for Congress.
He's like, I don't want to go to the House.
Wow. Seeking a seat in Kentucky's 8th District.
Well, in his district, the 8th Kentucky, it wasn't just any district, known as the Ashland District, after the famous estate of Whig Party founder Henry Clay. The region had long been a Whig stronghold. In fact, the Democrats hadn't even bothered running a candidate there in the last election. Facing Breckinridge was Leslie Combs. He was a popular former legislator. He liked baby oil, whose close ties to Clay and veteran status from the War of 1812 made him the heavy favorite.
Okay. One night. April, the two men debated in Frankfort, and by May, they were traveling the district together, giving daily speeches side by side.
That's interesting.
Right.
What if presidential candidates had to travel together throughout the whole campaign?
I think they should, actually. Breckinridge, he leaned into his strict constructionist view of the Constitution. And as usual, he attacked the Whig support for protective tariffs. He said, free thought needs free trade. Good for him. His booming voice and youthful energy stood in stark contrast to the older Combs style of fragile and don't let the wind blow.
Hey, man.
Listen, Jack.
Well, when Election Day came, Breckinridge didn't sweep the map. He only carried 3 of the 7 counties in the district. But his overwhelming 2-1 margin in Owen County gave him just enough to edge out Combs. So that was basically the L.A. of California.
Right.
He won that county by 677 votes and the district overall by 537. Against the odds, the Democrats had taken 5 of Kentucky's 10 congressional districts, and Powell, he was elected governor, which was the first Democrat to hold that office since 1834. Well, look at that. Democrats taking that's bye-bye Whigs, basically.
Yeah.
Death of them.
Son of a bitch. Well, once in Washington, Breckinridge's star rose quickly. Though not without setbacks, as usual. Some of his supporters pushed for him to become Speaker of the House, but he declined, and instead he supported fellow Kentuckian Lynn Boyd, who was ultimately elected. Despite their shared state, the two were political rivals, and Boyd banished Breckinridge to a relatively unimportant committee on foreign affairs.
Hey, She's leaving from this quieter position. Breckinridge found ways to make himself heard. His first speeches came in defense of William Butler. He was a would-be presidential candidate in 1852. He was also under attack from the pro-Stephen Douglas wing of the Democratic Party. The critics claimed Butler was too old and vague on slavery, but Breckinridge countered forcefully, even sparring with his own cousin, California Congressman Edward Marshall. Ironically, the attacks ended up damaging Douglas more than Butler, and Breckinridge's defense boosted his own reputation as well.
As the term wore on, Breckinridge he took a more active role in the debate. He defended the constitutionality of the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. He sparred with Ohio's Joshua Giddings, and he opposed Andrew Johnson's Homestead Act, fearing it would expand free soil territories. At the very same time, he wasn't even above fighting for Kentucky's interests.
So he's representing Kentucky's 8th district.
Just throw Kentucky in there. Though he campaigned on limiting federal spending to projects of national character, he lobbied to secure funds for river and harbor improvements. And he also backed legislation that benefited the hemp farmers in his district.
Republicans don't like that.
Well, hemp was a major building.
Should still be.
A building thing back then.
After Congress adjourned, Breckinridge returned home to Lexington, where he made near daily visits to the alien Henry Clay. When Clay passed away, it was Breckinridge who delivered his eulogy in Congress, a moment that cemented him as Clay's political heir, despite their differences in party. In 1852, Breckinridge campaigned for Democrat Franklin Pierce in the presidential race. Pierce lost Kentucky by just over 3,000 votes, but Breckinridge's influence with him was far greater than anything he had with outgoing Whig President Millard Fillmore.
Oh, wow. Talking about some of the worst.
Right. Just a week after Pierce's inauguration, Breckinridge was offered the governorship of Washington Territory.
Take it. Just go, bud. Go to the west and leave this part of the world alone.
Well, it's a post he actually had quietly lobbied for with letters of support from Powell and Butler.
No.
But by the time the offer came, he changed his mind. He's like, wait a minute, maybe I don't want to go out to unsettled territory.
He's like, that's a long way.
He said Washington was far away and his ambitions were higher.
Right.
He stayed in Kentucky and set his sights on re-election to Congress.
Okay. The Whigs, well, they weren't about to let old Breckinridge hold on to his seat without a fight. In the next election, they first put forward Kentucky's Attorney General, James Harlan.
Is that where Harlan County comes from?
Possible. But internal divisions quickly surfaced, and by March, Harlan withdrew from the race. He said, this shit's crazy. These guys are nuts. The Whigs then turned to one of their most reliable heavyweights. You guessed it, old Robert P. Letcher. He's a former congressman and governor. With a perfect record, he ain't done nothing wrong. Having won 14 elections in Kentucky without ever losing. I guess
that would be perfect.
That would be the perfect record. 14-0. Call him the LeBron of politics. I'm not LeBron. Call him the Michael Jordan of politics.
Could have just said Mayweather of politics.
Joe Montana. Letcher, he was a seasoned campaigner. Between May and August, both he and Breckinridge, they barnstormed the 8th district. Sometimes giving multiple speeches in a single day.
Oh, wow. So hard.
Like the 70s professional wrestlers. Sometimes we had 3 matches in one day.
But the contrast between the two men couldn't have been sharper.
Oh.
Letcher's speeches were colorful and packed with stories, but they lacked polish, and his temper sometimes got the better of him when he heckled, or when he was heckled.
All right.
He probably was like, you shut down, you piece of shit. Breckinridge, meanwhile, he remained steady and deliberate, delivering calm, reasoned arguments.
It's actually a good duo to have there.
You think? Well, one's going to end up looking crazy.
Right.
An unexpected twist came, though, when Cassius Clay, a longtime political enemy of Letcher and an outspoken emancipationist, he threw his support behind Breckinridge.
Ooh. He came in and floating like a butterfly.
Yeah, but Breckinridge don't want emancipation.
No.
Even though the two disagreed sharply on slavery, Clay's endorsement carried weight, obviously.
Right.
Letcher seized on this, accusing Breckinridge of being secretly hostile to slavery, citing not only Clay's support, but also the abolitionist leanings of some of Breckinridge's own relatives. Breckinridge fired back, pointing to his consistent record of defending slavery, and turning the accusation around. I love having slaves. What are you talking about?
I even have a handful of dogs.
Right, they're right here. Suggesting that it was actually Letcher who was unfriendly to the interests of slave owners.
Oh, my goodness, dude. Could you imagine sitting in the crowd listening to people talking about...
Well, this is Kentucky in 1850-something, so yeah.
Wow. Despite the districts leaning to the Whigs, it had backed Winfield Scott in the previous year's presidential election.
Sure did.
More than 600 votes. Old Breckinridge, he once again pulled off an upset. He defeated Letcher by 526.
Oh, wow. Completely turned around what Winfield did.
As in his earlier race, Owen County proved decisive, giving him an overwhelming margin. In fact, the county reported 123 more votes. More votes than it had eligible voters, guys. Where have we heard this before? Only every fucking year ever since this.
Probably not since this, before this as well.
Right. Grateful for the county's unwavering loyalty.
Yep, that's what it was.
Breckinridge gave his newborn son a nickname, Owen.
Okay. When the 33rd Congress convened, Breckinridge was just one of 80 members of the House to win re-election.
Oh.
His seniority earned him a seat on the prestigious Ways and Means Committee, though he stopped short of landing a chairmanship.
Oh, wow.
He remained firmly behind President Franklin Pierce's pro-slavery agenda, grounded in his support in the principle of states' rights.
Yep.
At the same time, he opposed secession as a solution to the nation's problems. It was a balance, one that kept him in the middle ground. So we should keep slaves, but we shouldn't get out of the country. Though he defended slaves, his early openness to ideas like manumission and colonization kept his image closer to that of a moderate.
Right. We got to figure out some way where we can eventually...
We can keep slaves, but also stay in the nation.
Well, we can eventually somehow pay these
Nope.
guys or, give them some sort of freedom. Breckinridge's closest ally, well, it was Illinois Senator Stephen Douglas. And he strongly backed Douglas's doctrine of popular sovereignty.
And then they ended up running against each other.
Usually how it goes. The doctrine was at the heart of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which we all know, which Breckinridge, he helped shepherd through Congress. He believed that the act would push the volatile issue of slavery out of national politics. In reality, of course, it did just the opposite. It tore the country further apart than what it already was.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you guys think was going to happen? Jeez, oh, Pete.
And during the heated debates over the act, tempers flared. Breckinridge made a comment on the House floor that infuriated New York Representative Francis Cutting.
Uh-oh.
Cutting demanded that Breckinridge retract or explain his words.
Well, I'd rather explain them. I'm not going to retract them, right?
Breckinridge took this as something more.
Oh, jeez.
Spoiler alert, a challenge to a duel.
Here we go again.
And so, under the strict code duelo, Breckinridge prepared for the encounter.
Oh, wow.
He named the terms rifles, at 60 paces, to be fought at Silver Spring, Maryland, which is the estate of his ally, Francis Preston Blair.
Why do they have to shoot them? What, couldn't they have like a fist fight?
Right.
What the fuck? One of you guys got to die?
Yes. You gotta die for what you believe in, I guess.
I mean, I guess it still goes on to today.
Cutting, though, who hadn't intended his outburst as a duel challenge, he was startled.
Right. What the fuck?
Believing Breckinridge had actually issued the challenge by naming the weapons, he responded by setting his own terms, which was pistols at 10 paces instead of rifles at 60. What would be the difference?
He's probably better with the pistol.
Right.
Wow. The confusion over who had to challenge whom. Oh, my goodness. Here. Wow. Imagine if we had this.
Well, the challenger, because when you challenge somebody to a duel, the challengee
gets to pick
the weapons
right.
and the terms.
Confusion over who had challenged whom nearly brought the matter to a bloodshed, which it was going to anyway, either way, right? But before shots could be fired, mutual friends intervened, as usual, as we've seen multiple times. They smoothed things over and prevented the duel to happen. I think half these times they just did this to make themselves look good, knowing that it's not going to go through.
It's like the high school fight or something. Somebody's going to break it up before anything happens, like in Dazed and Confused.
And they didn't.
They didn't.
Poor kid. And he was going to have himself a good night, too.
No doubt about it.
Driving there in the car and got in there. Next thing you know, he's got a big old bloody nose.
He still kind of had a good night, though.
Yeah. It was a lucky break for Breckinridge.
I would say so. You didn't get bullets fired at your face.
Kentucky's newly adopted constitution, any man who participated in any duel was barred from holding elected office. If the affair had gone forward, Breckinridge's promising political career, done.
Yeah. By 1854, Breckinridge's political fortunes took a hard hit, though. The Whig majority in the Kentucky General Assembly had grown tired of seeing a Democrat hold the Ashland district. February, they pushed through a reapportionment bill over the veto of Governor Lazarus Powell, and it carved Owen County out of Breckinridge's district. They took it, they gerrymandered that shit out of this fucking, so he wouldn't get no votes.
Fuck it. Gotta do what you gotta do.
In its place, they added Harrison and Nicholas counties, which obviously a calculated move. Owen County is Breckinridge's stronghold.
Right.
Yes. Without it, and with the sudden rise of the Know-Nothing Party in Kentucky, his chances at re-election evaporated.
Mm-hmm.
Breckinridge read the writing on the wall and announced he would retire at the end of his term. I will not seek re-election to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fucked.
Wow. December of 1854, opportunity came knocking again, but in a different form. Pierre Solé, the U.S. minister to Spain, abruptly resigned after failing to secure America's annexation of Cuba.
You didn't help us take over another country, you gotta go.
All right. This was an effort forever tainted by the scandal of the Ostend Manifesto. Oh. President Franklin Pierce turned to Breckinridge as Pierre's replacement. The Senate confirmed the nomination, but when February 8, 1855 arrived, Breckinridge quietly declined.
Oh, nice.
His reasons, you ask? Well, he told Franklin Pierce the reasons were of private and domestic nature. Ain't none of your business, bitch, basically.
There's shit going on at home, man.
Right. Just weeks later, on the 4th of March, his congressional term expired, just as his popularity is about to.
Not stepping away from Washington, Breckinridge returned to Lexington, determined to focus on family and fortune.
He just likes going to places with ton.
Right. His wife, she was sick. He needed not only to care for her, but also to rebuild his own financial standing.
Right.
He reopened his law practice, but also cast his eyes westward, invested in land speculation across the Minnesota and Wisconsin territories. That's a good start.
Hey.
Those ventures brought their own drama, which Governor Willis Gorman of Minnesota blocked an attempt by some of Breckinridge's fellow investors. Notably not including Breckinridge himself, though. He blocked him to secure approval for a railroad stretching from Dubuque, Iowa, to their property near Superior, Wisconsin. The group launched a campaign to have Gorman removed, though. They even petitioned President Pierce to replace him with Breckinridge. Twice, Pierce ordered investigations into Gorman. Twice, the inquiries turned up no misconduct. Gorman, he kept his post, and Breckinridge's name never made it to the appointment.
I mean, I don't understand why these people always decline these rare. I mean, I get they're all corrupt and all that shit, but
because they wanted their own companies that they had invested in and their own interests.
Right. Because you definitely want a railroad going through your shit.
Right.
But by who? Okay.
Who's going to control it?
Right. While his political career paused. I mean, we've seen it in Hell on Wheels. I mean, it's a dangerous game.
Right.
While his political career paused, Breckinridge found other ways to make his presence felt in Kentucky life. He threw himself into one of the state's proudest traditions, and you guessed it, horse racing.
Go, bud. Honest.
Known for both his love of the sport and his organizational skills, he was soon elected president of the Kentucky Association for the improvement of breed of horses.
The Kai.
Right. For the moment, Breckinridge had traded the floor of the Congress for the dirt floor of the racetrack in Lexington. Still a man in the public eye.
Would have sounded better if you would have traded the marble floor of Congress for the dirt floor of the racetrack.
Right.
You know?
Still a man in the public eye, but bidding his time for the next turn. Still a man in the public eye, but he's still biding his time for the next turn.
He's still young.
All right.
1856, Democratic Party gathered in Cincinnati for its national convention. Breckinridge, he arrived as a delegate, and like many Kentuckians, he initially backed Franklin Pierce for a renomination. But when Pierce's candidacy collapsed, Breckinridge shifted to support his old friend Stephen Douglas.
All right.
Even with that boost, Douglas couldn't hit the required 2/3 majority.
Nope.
He withdrew, leaving the nomination to James Buchanan, and we know what happened there.
Yes, we do.
At that point, some delegates wanted to balance the ticket.
Oh.
William Alexander Richardson of Illinois, he floated Breckinridge's name for vice president. It was a way to placate both Douglas and Pierce loyalists.
Exactly.
Breckinridge, deferential to another Kentuckian, Lynn Boyd, again. He said he didn't want it, but the convention had other plans. Basically, you're taking it anyway, motherfucker.
I'm sorry, bud. No more asking.
Right.
The first ballot, 10 men received votes. John Quitman of Mississippi led with 59. Breckinridge, despite refusing, he had 55. Boyd, he had 33. Sorry, Boyd, you got to go.
I mean, at this point, Breckinridge, when you're seeing that and you didn't even want it,
right,
you got to be like, all right, I guess.
Because he's going to get Boyd's votes and easily win. By the second ballot, momentum swung hard to Breckinridge. Delegates switched their votes until his nomination was unanimous. Just 36 years old, he suddenly found himself on a Democratic ticket to be the vice president next in line of the most powerful country in the United States of America.
Yep. Yep. That's the way it worked.
That's the way it worked.
Unlike many nominees of his era, we mentioned anybody we've seen running for president, basically, at this era, Breckinridge, he campaigned actively when other people just sent other people out for them.
Right.
In September alone, he crisscrossed states, Hamilton and Cincinnati, Ohio, Lafayette and Indianapolis, Indiana, Kalamazoo, Michigan, Covington, Kentucky, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. His stump speech was sharp. Republicans, he warned, were fanatically devoted to emancipation. Elect them, he said, and the Union would dissolve.
Ooh, it worked. Breckinridge's name on the ticket. Democrats carried Kentucky for the very first time since 1828, winning by 6,000 votes. Buchanan, Breckinridge defeated Fremont and William Dayton, as well as the know-nothing ticket of Millard Fillmore and Andrew Donaldson. All right, they won the Electoral College by 174 to 114 to 8. Well, more Millard Fillmore. I couldn't even get. How the hell did he ever get elected president?
He was already president.
Right, as I'm saying. 4th of March, 1857. Yes, 4th of March, 1857. Inauguration Day used to be on the 4th of March. Breckinridge took office as the youngest vice president in United States history, just 1 year over the constitutional minimum.
Yep. But the partnership with Buchanan was uneasy. The president resented Breckinridge for having first supported Pierce, then Douglas before backing him. Wow. Their relationship only grew colder after a miscommunication at the White House. When Breckinridge asked for a private meeting, Buchanan's staff told him to request Harriet Lane, who was the president's niece and hostess.
Oh, wow.
Breckinridge, he took that as an insult. Why should he go through Lane? He refused. Only later did Buchanan's allies explain that ask for Miss Lane was actually a coded instruction for staff to bring visitors straight to the president. Apologies were offered, but the awkwardness lingered. Why didn't they just say that,
Right,
then?
just say that.
Good Lord.
Son of a bitch. Buchanan rarely consulted Breckinridge, excluded him from patronage appointments. And when they both endorsed the Lecompton Constitution, which would have admitted Kansas as a slave state without a vote of its residents, they alienated.
Well, that's fucked up.
Right. They alienated Northern Democrats, including Douglas. That's got to piss Breckinridge off, right? Oh, they both
He wanted it.
Yeah. Plans for Breckinridge, Douglas, and Minnesota Senator Henry Rice to build adjoining townhouses in Washington quickly collapsed.
I'm not being that dude's neighbor no more.
Right, what the fuck?
Meanwhile, Breckinridge's personal life shifted. November 1857, after moving into new lodgings in Washington, D.C., he sold a slave woman and her infant, likely the moment historians believe when he ceased being a slave owner. So no more slaves after that, huh? But politically, his distance from Douglas grew. He offered only lukewarm support in Douglas's Senate re-election, and their friendship was frayed.
Yeah. As vice president, Breckinridge presided gracefully over the Senate. Even if his role kept him mostly silent in debate. 4th of January, 1859, he delivered the farewell address in the old Senate chamber, just before the body moved to its new hall. His words
The new Senate chamber.
Right. His words carried both pride and warning. The Constitution, he said, had survived peace and war, prosperity and adversity, protecting the larger personal freedom compatible with public order. He prayed that the future generations would carry the Union forward, still united, still prosperous, and still free. Then he led the procession to the new chamber. He said, let's go. Check it out, boys. Paint's still wet, so don't touch the walls.
But the nation, far from settled. In Kentucky, talk was already turning to the Senate seat of John Crittenden. That would expire in 1861. Who's going to take his place? Right. In late 1859, it looked like a contest between Breckinridge and Lynn Boyd. But Boyd's health collapsed, forcing him to withdraw in November. December 12th, the state legislature chose Breckinridge over Whig Joshua Fry Bell by a vote of 81 to 53. You're vice president, dude.
Right.
How are you going to take a... What?
Wow. His acceptance speech made clear where he stood. Did it. He endorsed... He endorsed the Dred Scott decision, which barred Congress from restricting slavery in territories. He pointed to John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry as proof of Republican extremism. neither Negro equality, as he phrased it, or violence.
Either of them. That's what Republican extremism is.
Right. Resistance, he predicted, would be unavoidable.
Extremism, Republican extremism for him was Negro equality. That's what he classified that as.
Right. Resistance, he predicted, would be unavoidable. Still, he urged the state to hold back from succession. God forbid that the step shall ever be taken, he said. But even as he said it, his tone unsettled some, including his own Uncle Robert.
No, Uncle Bob.
Bob. What about Bob? Breckinridge was walking a tightrope between loyalty to the Union and loyalty to slavery, between moderation and between radicalism, between the future of Kentucky and the fate of the entire Union itself.
Yep.
This is where everybody at this time is like, what do I do?
What are we going to do?
I love my state, but we should be a union. And I love my state.
I love slaves, but we should be a union.
Right.
Well, in comes the presidential campaign of 1860. Everybody knows about the presidential campaign of 1860. Talked about it till we're blue in the face.
Right.
But now we're going to even get bluer. By the late 1850s, whispers started circling Washington that old John Breckinridge, he might have his eyes on the presidency. In early 59, Senator James Henry Hammond of South Carolina, he even wrote a friend claiming that Breckinridge was quietly working toward a Democratic nomination. But as late as January 1860, Breckinridge swore to his family that he wanted nothing to do with that.
Yeah, he's probably done. Yet the country had eyes. The New York Times observed that while President Buchanan's reputation was sinking lower with every passing month, the star of the vice president rises high above the clouds, quote unquote, they said.
Buchanan was probably pissed.
Stephen Douglas, Democratic frontrunner, well, he thought it was obvious that Breckinridge would be a candidate. In fact, and the fact that Buchanan leaned towards supporting him only deepened their rivalry. The 1860 Democratic National Convention, well, it was in Charleston, South Carolina, was already shaping up to be one of the stormiest in party history. Breckinridge wasn't even there, but he had plenty of Kentuckians working the floor on his behalf. You had Senator Lazarus Powell, former Congressman William Preston, his law partner, James Brown Clay, and James B. Beck. Still...
James said, I'll be back.
He gave them firm instructions. He said, do not whatsoever put my name forward as long as James Guthrie remained in the running. They listened.
Over 57 long ballots, Douglas held a strong lead, but could never reach the required two-thirds majority. Guthrie came in second, but the convention was deadlocked.
Wow.
Finally, the delegates voted to reconvene weeks later in Baltimore. When they arrived, the Democratic Party promptly split in two.
Ooh.
We got the pro-Southern delegates who had stormed out of Charleston. They refused to return.
Right.
Furious that the party hadn't backed a federal slave code. The main convention went ahead without him. They eventually nominated Douglas for president and Herschel Johnson for vice president.
Okay.
But Breckinridge, he's going to get a chance because the Bolters, as they called them, they held their own convention just down the street in Baltimore.
Right.
Breckinridge's name surfaced again there. On the first ballot, he drew 81 votes, second only to a handful for Daniel Dickinson of New York. Soon, Dickinson's supporters shifted. Breckinridge's nomination was made unanimous.
Oh, wow.
Joseph Lane of Oregon was selected as his running mate.
Good for him, right?
Random.
Right. Despite concerns that a divided party would spell disaster, Breckinridge accepted.
If it wasn't for them splitting, Abraham Lincoln probably wouldn't have won.
Most likely not. By August, Mississippi's Jefferson Davis even tried to broker a compromise. Douglas, Breckinridge, and John Bell of the Constitutional Union Party, they would all step aside for a unity candidate. Bell and Breckinridge, they were like, all right, we don't, it's dividing everybody. But Stephen Douglas was like, nah, I don't think so. I'm not down for that. The split was final. Democratic Party split into dos. Now, Breckinridge, he faced a nation branded as the candidate of the Southern Wing. Opponents painted him as a secessionist, eager to break up the Union. Frankfort, Kentucky, he pushed back. He said, I am an American citizen, a Kentuckian who never did an act nor cherished a thought that was not full of devotion to the Constitution and the Union.
Yeah, sure. But the numbers, they weren't on his side. He had little chance in the North.
Yeah.
Most of the South seemed his only base.
Man.
Even then, it was complicated.
Right.
Rural areas with fewer enslaved people went strongly for him, but cities with higher slave populations leaned toward Bell or Douglas. Some Breckinridge allies whispered that the real strategy was to force the election into the House of Representatives, where a fractured vote might give him a path to victory.
Yeah.
In a private letter to Verena Davis, the wife of old Jeffy, Breckinridge admitted, "I trust I have the courage to lead a forlorn hope."
Oh.
Okay.
Well, the results came in November. Abraham Lincoln is elected your 16th president of the United States of America. He had 180 electoral votes. Breckinridge carried most of the Deep South, plus Maryland and Delaware, giving him 72 electoral votes. Bell, he got 39, and Douglas got 12. Breckinridge placed second in the Electoral College, but third in the popular vote with just 18%. The task of formally announcing Lincoln's victory fell to Breckinridge, ironically, in his capacity as vice president.
Right. He's the
Right.
head of the Senate, bud.
13th February, 1861, Breckinridge presided over the Senate and read the tally that sealed Lincoln's win. Afterward, he paid a visit to Lincoln at his Washington hotel. He continued to call on his step-cousin, Mary Todd Lincoln, once she was in the White House. Even those last 10 months, he was moving in both worlds. The rise and succession crisis pulling one way, family and union ties pulling the other. I mean, I got family in the White House, but I live in the South.
I really love slaves. Well, during the lame duck session of Congress, Breckinridge tried one last time to help craft a compromise. He appointed a strong committee of 13, representing every faction, threw his weight behind John Crittenden's proposed constitutional amendments to appease the South. But the effort collapsed. March 4th, 1861, Breckinridge swore in his successor, Hannibal Hamlin. And then Hamlin returned the favor, administering the oath to Breckinridge as Kentucky's newly elected U.S. Senator.
Oh.
Yeah, so look at that.
Working out, huh? The Union was cracking. And Breckinridge, he was about to find himself right in the middle of the storm. When he took his seat in the Senate of 1861, the country was already unraveling. 7 states gone from the Union, creating their own country. The Southern senators who remained found themselves badly outnumbered and fighting a losing battle to defend slavery and the Southern cause. Breckinridge, he tried to hold on to hope for compromise. He even urged Lincoln to withdraw federal troops from Confederate states, hoping that a gesture like that just might pull the nation back from the brink of war. But the tide was already turning. And by April 12th, Confederate guns, as we all know, opened the first fire, Fort Sumter. And with that, the Civil War has began.
Yep.
Holy shit! I was watching had to turn it off within the first 10 minutes.
Well, still, Breckinridge, he sought middle ground even with war on the
Horizon.
Well, it's not on the horizon. It began. April 2nd, he told the Kentucky legislature that he wanted to see a conference of border states to find a peaceful solution.
I mean, you got to, right?
He even recommended that Governor Beriah Magoffin he called a sovereignty convention to decide Kentucky's fate. And by May, he was one of 6 delegates meeting to chart a course. Breckinridge, Magoffin, and Richard Hawes representing the states' rights faction. John Crittenden, Archibald Dixon, and S.S. Nicholas for the Unionists. They couldn't agree on much.
They had a Navy boat?
They couldn't agree on much, so the compromise was neutrality. Kentucky would stand armed and independent, resisting invasion by either side.
Sweden.
Switzerland. Kind of. Breckinridge personally didn't like it, but when the legislature approved, he pledged honor.
Sweden.
That's what you went there for.
Switzerland.
Yeah.
Neutrality collapsed almost immediately, as everybody thought it would. June's elections, pro-Union candidates swept 9 of Kentucky's 10 congressional seats. Breckinridge, he returned to Washington in July. His Senate colleagues looked at him as a traitor in waiting. He railed against Lincoln's moves, raising troops without congressional approval, spending money without authorization, and suspending the habeas corpus. Wow, Lincoln did all that, huh? To Breckinridge, it was unconstitutional. He cast a lone vote against a resolution giving Lincoln the government's entire resources to prosecute the war.
Wow.
Wow.
Pressed on what he would do if he were president, Breckinridge gave a revealing answer. He would do anything to keep the states united on true constitutional principles, he says. But failing that, he said he would rather see a peaceful separation than endless, aimless, devastating war, at the end of which I see the grave of public liberty and of personal freedom. The war had ended up coming to Kentucky in September. On the 3rd, Confederate troops crossed into the state. Just 3 days later, Ulysses S. Grant marched Union forces into Paducah, seizing the key town on the Ohio River.
All right.
Kentucky's neutrality was shattered.
Sure was. Couldn't do anything about it anymore. Got to pick a side now.
The Union, they cracked down hard, arresting former Governor Charles Moorhead for his Confederate sympathies, and silencing the Louisville Courier for its editorials.
Oh, man.
Oh, wow. Didn't know Trump was in charge back then. Rumors swirled that Breckinridge, he was next on General Thomas Bramlett's arrest list.
Oh, spaghetti-o. 19th September, Breckinridge, he slipped out of Lexington. He rode east to Prestonburg, where he linked up with Confederate sympathizers George Johnson, George Baird Hodge, William Preston, and William E. Sims. And together, they all crossed into Virginia. Then they traveled by rail to Confederate-held Bowling Green.
Bowling Green, Kentucky, huh?
Right. Kentucky's legislator wasted no time demanding his resignation. Instead, Breckinridge published a defiant open letter to his constituents on the 8th of October. The old blue coats, he declared, no longer existed. Union gone.
Blue coats, eh?
Yep, the Union gone. Kentucky had the right to choose her own destiny.
Well, they did. They just voted 9 out of 10 freaking Unionists.
He went on to say in a letter, I exchange with proud satisfaction a term of 6 years in the Senate of the United States for the musket of a soldier. Wow.
Oh.
Days later, he officially enlisted in the Confederate States Army.
The United States government, they responded in kind. They obliged him. November 6th, he was indicted for treason in federal court in Frankfort. December 2nd, the Senate declared him a traitor.
Oh, wow.
2 days later, by unanimous vote of 36-0, he was expelled. I would have hoped so.
Right.
The resolution was blunt. John C. Breckinridge had joined the enemies of his country, taken up arms against the government he'd sworn to protect, and even presided over, vice presided over. The young Kentuckian who had once been vice president of the United States was now branded an enemy of the Union. His next chapter would not be in the halls of Congress, but on the battlefields of the Civil War.
Damn right it would, Ben.
On the recommendation of Simon Bolivar Buckner, a man who once commanded the Kentucky State Militia before throwing his lot in with the Confederacy, Breckinridge is commissioned as a brigadier general. Just 2 weeks later, November 16th, he's handed command of the 1st Kentucky Brigade. The men who marched under him quickly became known as the Orphan Brigade.
Okay.
Why, you ask?
Well,
because Kentucky, their home state, had chosen to remain with the Union, leaving these Confederate-leaning soldiers feeling abandoned,
right.
Cut off from the government that had once been theirs.
Cut off from the state that they truly loved. The brigade, well, it became part of Buckner's 2nd Division in Elbert Sidney Johnston's Army of the Mississippi.
Oh, don't say the.
Oh, right. For weeks, Breckinridge drilled his troops, molding them into fighting shape. At the very same time, he played a role in setting up a provisional Confederate government for Kentucky as well. Now, it wasn't sanctioned by the legislature back in Frankfort, but the symbolism was enough. Because on the 10th of December, 1861, the Confederacy officially admitted Kentucky as its newest state.
Okay, guys. Just because you do it doesn't mean it happened.
Right.
Was Kentucky officially? No.
No, Kentucky never was.
Well, they went to the Union. They ended up going with the Union because the Confederates couldn't stay out of it.
Right.
But by that time, war was already moving fast.
All right.
By February 1862, Johnson, he was forced to abandon Bowling Green. There goes that. During that retreat, Breckinridge found himself in charge of Johnson's Reserve Corps. A bold gamble was about to unfold right now. Johnson, he intended to strike Ulysses S. Grant's army at Shiloh, Tennessee, launching a surprise attack northward from Corinth, Mississippi. April 6, 1862, the Battle of Shiloh. Breckinridge's reserves are thrown into the fight as Johnson presses hard to push Grant's men back toward the river. For much of the day, Confederate momentum is strong.
All right.
But in the midst of the battle, Johnson struck down, killed in action.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Command then passes to PGT Beauregard, who, rather than pressing the advantage, he halts the Confederate assault around 6 p.m.
Okay. Got that on there, huh? The very next morning, those blue coats, they regroup. They hit back hard. The tide turns. By the end of 7th of April, the Confederates are driven back. Breckinridge's men, however, hold the line as the army retreats, acting as the Confederate rear guard on the very ground that they had fought so bitterly for the day before. Union forces choose not to pursue, as they always do.
Yeah, but this was Grant.
Still, the cost was steep. Out of 7,000 men under Breckinridge's command, nearly 2,000 casualties, 386 dead, 1,600 wounded. Breckinridge himself was among the injured. Well, yet his performance did not go unnoticed, because on the 14th of April, just days after Shiloh, Breckinridge, he was promoted to Major General. His next assignment, you ask? Well, it sent him to join Earl Van Dorn. This is near Vicksburg, Mississippi. This is where Confederate troops braced for a Union offensive throughout July. But the real test came in early August. This is when Van Dorn ordered Breckinridge to retake Baton Rouge.
Uh-oh. Good luck.
Good luck, yeah. You know.
August 5th, despite his ranks thinned to just about 3,000 by disease and desertion, Breckinridge launched his attack on old Louisiana.
Oh, fuck off.
His men captured prisoners, destroyed supplies, and pushed Union forces back toward the safety of their gunboats. It looked like victory was within grasp if the Confederate Navy could deliver.
Right.
Instead, the ironclad CSS Arkansas was meant to steam down the Red River to back the assault. Instead, mechanical failure crippled the vessel.
Oh, of course.
Its crew scuttled it in flames, sending it drifting downstream as a floating inferno. With no naval support, Breckinridge not going to hold the city.
Oh, wow. Just imagine if the naval support was there.
By 10 a.m., he had to withdraw.
All that for naught. Wow. Still, his efforts kept Confederate control strong in the lower Mississippi. Later that very August, he seized Port Hudson, which is a key stronghold that would stall Federal advances along the river. But even as he gained ground, events elsewhere pulled him away. General Braxton Bragg was preparing for an invasion of Kentucky. Worst mistake ever. Believed Breckinridge's presence there could inspire new enlistments. Reluctantly, Van Dorn released him on the 15th of October. By the time Breckinridge arrived, Bragg had already suffered defeat at Perryville and was retreating south. He said, yeah, we're not doing that. Turn around. Breckinridge and his division of 7,000 men joined Bragg at Murfreesboro. It just keeps on getting worse from him.
For Breckinridge, Kentucky was gone. The Union held it firm, and his own family had to flee south to stay near him.
Damn.
Following his army as closely as the dangers of war allowed. Tension was always simmering, meanwhile, between Breckinridge and Braxton. Bragg resented him deeply.
Oh, wow.
Breckinridge was connected with close family ties to Confederate heavyweights like Joseph Johnson, Wade Hampton, John Floyd, and William Preston.
Oh.
To Bragg, that network looked like favoritism and privilege. And he never forgave Breckinridge for arriving late during the Kentucky campaign. Oh, what do you mean? He blamed him for the disappointing lack of Confederate volunteers in the state.
Oh, wow.
Oh, jeez.
Wow. Okay. Then came the breaking point. December 1862. Bragg, he ordered the execution of Corporal Asa Lewis of Kentucky.
Asa.
Lewis had served faithfully with the 6th Kentucky Infantry long past his enlistment date. But his destitute mother and siblings begged him to come home. When he tried to go home, Bragg had him arrested for desertion. Oh, get out of here. Lewis swore he was on his way back to the army when caught, but Bragg was determined to make an example. The execution went forward.
Damn, one of his own guys, huh?
What a piece of shit. Dude stayed after his a lot of time.
A witness in the scene, Breckinridge grew visibly ill. He slumped in his saddle, so shaken that his staff had to steady him.
Wow.
He called it nothing less than military murder.
It was.
And only barely managed to hold his Kentucky troops back from open mutiny.
How about just murder? That's what it was. Shit.
From then on, Breckinridge and Bragg's relationship spiraled.
Yeah.
Breckinridge considered him incompetent, and many other Confederate officers agreed. Yeah,
we've heard that about Bragg if you listen
to our episode on him.
Goodness gracious.
Soon after, their animosity spilled into the field at the Battle of Stones River. Breckinridge's division, part of William Hardee's corps, held the east bank of the river, while Bragg's, their main force, clashed with William Rosecrans and the Union Army of the Cumberland, December 31st, 1862. Bragg, he wanted Breckinridge to reinforce the west side, but faulty cavalry reports from John Pegram delayed him. Oh, here we go. By the time Breckinridge crossed, his attacks fizzled, and Bragg pulled him back.
Oh, wow. Wow. Just 2 days later, 2nd of January, Bragg made a fateful decision. Union troops under Horatio Van Cleve, they crossed the river and seized the ridge, threatening the old rebel line. Breckinridge strongly opposed a frontal assault, writing to his brother-in-law, Preston, that if he was murdered, Preston must tell the world he had spoken against this unwise attack. But orders were orders.
Them's the rules.
4 p.m., Breckinridge's Kentuckians charged, and they charged hard. At first, they broke through the Union line and forced them back across the river. Then, disaster struck, as usual. Federal artillery on the opposite side rained fire into their ranks. Fresh Union reinforcements under James Negley, they arrived. Barely an hour, Breckinridge lost nearly a third of his command, dead, wounded, or captured.
Jesus. He rode among the survivors, crying out again and again, "My poor orphans! My poor orphans!" The name of the Orphan Brigade, already known, became etched in memory that day.
Son of a bitch. I would have looked at Bragg. This is your fault.
But Bragg's report laid the blame for defeat squarely on Breckinridge, criticizing his division's conduct.
Okay.
Furious, Breckinridge demanded a court of inquiry, but he was denied.
Of course he was.
His Kentuckians, embittered by Bragg's leadership and the bloody failures, even urged him to resign and challenge Bragg to a duel.
Oh, a dreaded duel.
Shoot him right in the forehead, dude.
Wow. May 1863. Old Breckinridge, he was reassigned under Joseph E. Johnston this time. He fought at the Battle of Jackson, trying but unsuccessfully to break the siege of Vicksburg. When the city fell to Grant on the 4th of July, Breckinridge was sent back to Bragg's command. Well, I don't understand. They know that they don't mesh, so send them somewhere else. I don't care if they're the best they got or whatever. Because clearly these guys were not.
They needed to do something with the Mississippi area, and
they weren't professional.
Apparently, Bragg stayed way past his command. Should have ever gone. But.
Wow, Chickamauga that December. What?
December tep.
Chickamauga that September. He led a division in D.H. Hill's corps. On the second day of fighting, his troops helped break the Union line, send Rosecrans' armor retreating. But victory was incomplete. The main Union force escaped to Tennessee. Breckinridge's division alone lost over 1,200 men.
Man, Breckinridge.
Wow, by late November, he was commanding one of Bragg's corps at Chattanooga. But Bragg weakened his command by stripping away men to reinforce William Hardee. Left undermanned, Breckinridge couldn't withstand the combined Union assault by Joseph Hooker and George Thomas on Missionary Ridge. Among the losses that day, his own son, Cabell, was captured. But he was later exchanged.
Good for him. In the aftermath, Bragg's bitterness boiled over. His official reports accused Breckinridge of drunkenness, not only at Chattanooga, but retroactively at Stones River as well.
Wow.
The charge was dubious. Breckinridge, he was known to enjoy whiskey, but equally known for holding it well as well.
Right.
He's a functioning drunk.
Right.
Nevertheless, Bragg removed him from command before resigning his own post.
Oh.
Breckinridge's career reeled, and it would be nearly 2 years before he and Bragg reconciled.
Oh, wow.
And that was in the spring of 1865, by then far too late to matter.
Yeah, these guys were reconciling, and Lee was surrendering. Right. 15th December, 1863, Breckinridge slipped quietly into Richmond for leave. But before he even unpacked his bags, word spread northward that he was dead. New York Times jumped on the rumor, as they always do. They printed a scathing obituary that painted him as a hypocrite, a man who once defended states' rights, but then abandoned his home state when Kentucky chose to remain in the Union. The venom of the piece reflected just...
They got a point there. Everybody else went to their states because they went to the sided with the Confederacy. But
That's true.
I mean,
It's true.
if Virginia had sided with the Union, Lee would have never went to the Confederacy.
Not at all. The venom of the piece reflected just how far Breckinridge's name had fallen in the northern states. Wow. In the Confederacy, though, the mood was different.
I would hope so.
Leaders were skeptical of Bragg's accusations against him. In February 1864, old Jefferson Davis himself gave Breckinridge a new assignment. He said, "Go ahead, command the Trans-Allegheny Department," later called the Department of East Tennessee and West Virginia. Oh, that's good for him, right?
Yeah. That spring, Robert E. Lee needed him.
Oh.
On May 5th, Lee ordered Breckinridge to take a small force in the Shenandoah Valley to probe the Union Army under Franz Sigel. With only 4,800 men, including 261 teenage cadets from the Virginia Military Institution. Breckinridge marched on Winchester. 10 days later, on May 15th, he met Sigel at the Battle of Newmarket. We just put out a little thing on that on our YouTube the other day. What are the odds?
Yeah.
Speaking of odds against them, Breckinridge's outnumbered force broke Sigel's line and drove the Union Army across west of the Shenandoah River.
Oh, no shit.
The victory was enormous. It saved a crucial railroad junction, secured the valley's wheat supply,
Oh, gotta have that wheat.
and protected Lee's flank.
Okay.
Breckinridge's handling of the battle was so sharp that Southerners began calling him the worthy successor to Stonewall Jackson himself.
Well, that's a little too far there.
Right. His stock as a general had never been higher.
Oh, good for him, right? That very summer comparisons to Jackson.
You keep it up, bud. You got presidential aspirations for the Confederacy should you win.
Right. That very summer comparisons to Jackson deepened. Because on the 24th of July at the Second Battle of Kernstown, fought on the very same ground where Jackson had begun his legendary Valley Campaign 2 years earlier. Oh, Breckinridge, he was at the center of it again. This time, though, under Juba Early. 13,000 Confederate. They routed 10,000 Bluecoats under George Crook. It opened the way for another rebel push into the north.
Yep.
Wow, soon after Breckinridge's men, they reinforced Lee at Cold Harbor. Wasn't that a movie, too? Where his division repulsed heavy Union attacks. But he paid a price. A cannonball struck his horse, pinning him underneath and leaving him badly injured. He couldn't walk or ride when Lee sent him to gather the remnants of the shattered Confederate forces after their defeat at Piedmont. Yep. Still, Breckinridge hauled himself by rail to Rockfish Gap, and he marched on to Lynchburg, where his arrival, well, combined with Juba Early's, well, saved the city from Union General David Hunter. Good for you, buddy. Damn.
With Hunter
Horse
in...
falling at you, imagine that.
Right.
Can't do anything about it. Good luck.
And the horse is dead.
Yeah.
Right. With Hunter in retreat, Lee ordered the next bold step. Take the valley, cross into Maryland, and threaten Washington itself.
Oh,
July 9th, 1864, the Confederates met resistance at Monocacy.
I'm sure they did.
They prevailed, but the fight brought the Union reinforcements precious time. It bought them it, too.
All right.
2 days later, at Fort Stevens, the Confederate advance faltered. Old Lincoln himself stood on the ramparts, watching as the American flag flew and Breckinridge and Early's men attacked.
Oh, wow.
It was the only time in American history that two former presidential rivals, Lincoln and Breckinridge, faced each other across the battlefield.
No shit.
Oh, come on, guys. That's an ESPN stat.
Right.
Early decided not to storm the well-defended Capitol, and the Confederates withdrew. They just wanted to show them, though.
Right.
We had Lincoln scared.
Take a look here, guys. Take a look what we got. Well, still, they held the Shenandoah Valley through July and August. But 19th September, Philip Sheridan smashed their defenses.
He sure did.
At the Third Battle of Winchester, forcing a retreat. Breckinridge's sense of foreboding showed in his reply to General John B. Gordon's advice to be careful. Well, General, there's little left for me if our cause is to fail.
You burn all the bridges, bud.
Nah. That very fall, Breckinridge again took command of the Department of East Tennessee, West Virginia, after John Hunt Morgan's death. He reorganized the shattered department, then defended the critical salt works at Saltville on the 2nd of October. His troops held that very position, but the next day, horror. And it unfolded quickly. Soldiers under his command began killing wounded black Union soldiers from the 5th U.S. Colored Cavalry, estimated 45 to 100 men. Breckinridge rushed to stop the massacre when he heard the gunfire. Brigadier General Felix Houston Robertson was suspected of involvement and even bragged about the killings himself. Robert E. Lee ordered Breckinridge to press charges, but no trial ever came.
Of course not. In November, Breckinridge led a raid into northeastern Tennessee, driving Union General Alvin Gillum back to Knoxville at the Battle of Bull's Gap. But the campaign ended with Union General George Stoneman's raid in December. December 17th through the 18th, Stoneman's cavalry attacked at Marion, Virginia. Breckinridge, outnumbered on both flanks, he fought stubbornly for 2 days until his men ran out of ammo. Stoneman destroyed salt works, lead mines, railroads, and supply depots across the region. Yep, when Breckinridge's men finally restocked, they pushed Stoneman back, just as the Union raiders themselves ran low on ammo.
Okay.
Oh,
shit. Well, it was a pattern for Breckinridge in 1864. Flashes of brilliance, moments of redemption. But would always be overshadowed by the grinding collapse of the Confederate cause. January of 1865, the old rebels, they were unraveling. James Sedan, weary and overwhelmed, resigned as Confederate Secretary of War on the 19th of January. Less than 3 weeks later, President Jefferson Davis filled the vacancy with Breckinridge himself. A choice meant, in part, the calm, growing dissent against his administration. You, Breckinridge, right. Secretary of War, huh, bud?
Some members of the Confederate Congress objected at first. Breckinridge, after all, had hesitated to join the Confederacy until late in the war. Well, it wasn't late, but,
right.
But once in office, he won them over. Unlike his predecessors, he ran the War Department with efficiency and decisiveness, expanded its reach to include officer assignments, promotion recommendations, and even advising field generals on strategy. That's what a Secretary of War should do, right?
Exactly.
His very first act was to promote old Robert E. Lee to General-in-Chief of all Confederate armies.
Yeah.
He said, we need this guy.
Mm-hmm. Damn. Almost immediately, Lee reported dire shortages of food, clothing, and supplies among his soldiers. Breckinridge pushed for the removal of the Commissary General, Lucius Northrop, whose failures were legendary. With Northrop replaced by Isaac St. John, supplies began to flow more effectively to the front. But Breckinridge was no fool.
What the hell was Lucius doing?
Right, nothing, right? By late February, he concluded that the cause was doomed.
Yeah.
While Davis clung to the dreams of continuing the fight, Breckinridge began preparing for surrender. He delegated day-to-day operations to his assistant, John Archibald Campbell, and he spoke candidly. This has been a magnificent epic. In God's name, let it not terminate in farce.
Oh, it's going to.
Oh.
April 2nd, 1865, Lee sent word he could no longer hold Richmond. That night, the capital would fall. Breckinridge ordered Campbell to organize the flight of the Confederate cabinet to Danville when he remained behind to oversee the destruction of supplies and facilities. Yet, crucially, he preserved the Confederate records and archives for history. Good for you, bud.
Nice.
As he left, I'm surprised they didn't burn all of them, to be honest.
Right.
As he left Richmond, he ordered the bridges over the James River to set aflame. His own son, Clifton, serving in the Confederate Navy, he resigned and joined them as they moved south to link up with Davis.
Okay. Wow. He reached Farmville on the 5th of April, stayed with Lee's forces until the 7th, then pressed on to Danville. By the time he arrived on the 11th of April, it was too late. Lee had surrendered 2 days earlier. The cabinet already fled to Greensboro, North Carolina. Breckinridge rode there himself, arriving on the 13th of April, and he urged that the remaining armies be surrendered as well. Only Jefferson Davis and Secretary of State Judah Benjamin still resisted reality. Yeah, because these guys had the most to lose.
At Bennett Place, Breckinridge personally assisted General Joseph Johnson in surrender negotiations with William Tecumseh Sherman.
Oh, wow.
Even Sherman, no admirer of the Confederates, he praised Breckinridge's skill as a negotiator.
Okay.
Though Washington rejected the generous terms first offered, forcing Sherman to align them with those at Appomattox. Unconditional, baby.
Yep.
Or unconditional. Yeah, no conditions. Right. The talks ended with a formal surrender.
Oh, okay.
Then came the crushing news. April 18th, Sherman and Johnson informed Breckinridge of Abraham Lincoln's assassination.
Oh, wow.
Breckinridge, who had briefly lived in the Peterson house years earlier as a congressman, he was visibly shaken. Witnesses recalled him saying quietly, "Gentlemen, the South has lost its best friend."
Oh, and probably true.
Yeah, because all the other people in the Union, I don't know, Abraham Lincoln still wanted the war. He didn't want to, but he probably wouldn't been so gracious about it.
No, hell no. Wow. 28th.
And he knew that Lincoln would probably take it easy on all the soldiers and shit like that. It wasn't for years after until they finally all got pardoned. Lincoln probably would have done it immediately.
He would have. That's the way to do it, I guess, to get rid of the division, man. Trying to get this country back together. 28th April. He rode into Abbeville. This is South Carolina. It could be Abbeville, I don't know. This is where he and General Basil Duke, they finally persuaded Davis that further resistance was hopeless. Breckinridge was entrusted with what remained of the Confederate treasury, with about $150,000 in gold.
Yeah.
As he traveled south with the bullion, tensions ran high. Soldiers in his escort, unpaid for months, threatened to seize the gold for themselves. and Breckinridge calmed them by paying their wages directly from the treasury. Though some abandoned the mission afterward. They got their money.
They got their money.
Get the fuck out of here, right? 4th of May, Breckinridge reached Washington. This is in Georgia. They were disbursed some final payments, deposited the remainder in banks, dissolved the Confederate War Department, and a letter to his deputies. For John C. Breckinridge, the war was over. Not with a farce, but with a steady hand of a man who had tried to end it with dignity.
May 5th, 1865, the same day Jefferson Davis officially dissolved the Confederate government, Breckinridge began the final chapter of his flight from the Union. He discharged most of his escort, keeping only a small group of loyal Kentuckians under the command of his cousin, William Campbell Preston Breckinridge. Feeling honor-bound to protect Davis, Breckinridge attempted a diversion to give the former president a chance to escape.
Right.
The next day, the party encountered a sizable federal force. While his cousin negotiated with the Union commander, Breckinridge slipped away with a small detachment. Riding southward through Georgia, they reached Milltown, which is now Lakeland, by May 11th and stayed there a few days. After learning of Davis's capture, Breckinridge pressed on with only a military aide, a personal servant, and his own son, Cabell. By May 15th, Madison, Florida, he joined fellow fugitive John Taylor Wood, who was a former Confederate Navy captain. Together, they planned to escape to the Bahamas, but Cabell, allergic to mosquitoes, he was told to surrender to the nearest federal officer. You do not want to be going down to the Bahamas. You don't even want to be in Florida.
What the fuck?
Get out of there.
How the hell are you allergic to mosquitoes?
That's called malaria.
Jeez. Gainesville, the group found Colonel John Jackson Dickinson, who provided them with a lifeboat.
Let's sail the 7 seas on a lifeboat.
Right. This is taken from a captured Union gunboat. Traveling down the St. Johns River, they reached Fort Butler on the 29th of May, then continued to Lake Harney. There, the boat was hauled about 12 miles overland to Sand Point, which is modern Titusville on the Indian River. Repairs were completed at the John C. Houston property on Elbow Creek, and Wood led them south along the river. Okay.
By June 4th, they had transferred the boat to the Atlantic near Jupiter Inlet and continued along Florida's coast. Strong winds made navigation difficult, but they pressed on. June 5th, a federal steamer spotted them, though they convinced its crew they were merely coastal hunters. 2 days later, they encountered a larger vessel, chased it down, disarmed its crew, and commandeered the boat. In a show of good faith, they left their old boat and $20 in gold for the former owners and returned some of the weapons. With this seaworthy vessel, they set sail for Cuba. Despite encountering pirates, violent storms, and scarce provisions, they arrived in Cardenas on June 11th. A Kentuckian living locally recognized Breckinridge, introduced him to the community, and served as interpreter.
Wow.
Got lucky there. Huh?
Right.
The refugees were fed and lodged overnight before continuing by rail to Havana. There, Breckinridge declined an offer of a house, choosing instead to travel with Charles Helm, who was a fellow Kentuckian and Confederate agent to Great Britain.
Oh, shit. Wow. By late July, Breckinridge, he arrived in Britain. He consulted with former Confederate agents and arranged communications with his wife, who was in Canada. He soon returned across the Atlantic to be reunited with his wife and all of his children except Clifton in Toronto in September 13th, 1865. Family spent the winter there, first in a hotel, then in a rented home. According to Mrs. Breckinridge, there were enough Confederate exiles in the city to form quite a pleasant society among ourselves. In May, they moved to Niagara. By August, doctors recommended the milder climate of France for Mrs. Breckinridge's health. Cabell returned to the United States to join Clifton in business, while their 12-year-old daughter, Mary, went to live with relatives in New York. The remainder of the family traveled across Europe, where the children attended schools in Paris, Versailles, and Vevey, Switzerland. Between mid-1866 and early 1868, Breckinridge toured Europe and the Middle East. He visited Germany, Austria, Turkey, Greece, Syria, Egypt, and the Holy Land. His wife remained in France due to her health, joining him in Naples in February of 1868. There in their tour of Italy, Breckinridge met Pope Pius IX in Rome, and he visited the ruins of Pompeii itself.
Look at him. Yeah. June of 1868, Breckinridge had moved the family back to Niagara, still wary of a capture. He steadfastly refused to seek a pardon, even though 70 members of the Kentucky General Assembly had requested one on his behalf from President Andrew Johnson February 10, 1866. Damn. January 8, 1868, Louisville City Council instructed the state's congressional delegation to secure assurances that Breckinridge would not face prosecution if he returned.
Oh, come back to Louisville, baby.
James Beck, Breckinridge's former law partner and now in Congress, he wrote to him December 11, 1868, suggesting that Johnson might issue a general pardon to all former Confederates.
Oh.
Beck urged Breckinridge to return before the pardon was finalized, fearing it might only cover those still in the country.
Yeah, that's true.
And which it did.
Wow. Christmas Day, 1868. President Andrew Johnson proclaimed amnesty for all former Confederates. Breckinridge, still in Canada, lingered for a few weeks to ensure that the pardon applied to him, even though he had not been in the United States when it was issued. Confident in his safety, he departed Canada on the 10th of February of 1869, making stops along the way to visit family and friends. He arrived in Lexington on the 9th of March. Though he would live in Kentucky for the rest of his life, he never bought a home. Instead, he resided first in hotels and later renting a house on West 2nd Street.
Yeah, life after the war saw Breckinridge navigate new roles. Southern insurance companies sought his expertise, and in August of 1868, he became manager of the Kentucky branch of Virginia's Piedmont Life Insurance Company, which is later known as the Piedmont and Arlington Insurance Company.
Okay.
Washington College, now known as Washington and Lee University, they offered him a professorship, encouraged by former Confederate Colonel William Preston Johnston, but Breckinridge declined. He went on to resume his law practice, taking it as a partner Robert Thornton. He was a 27-year-old Confederate veteran. He also served as general counsel for the proposed Cincinnati Southern Railway, an ambitious plan to connect Cincinnati to Chattanooga via Lexington.
Okay.
Louisville officials tried to block the project to protect the Louisville and Nashville railroads near monopoly.
I'm sure they did.
But after presenting his case to the House and Senate Railroad Committees January 25th, 1870, Breckinridge eventually secured approval 2 years later, and construction began in 1873.
Look at that shit. Other railroad ventures proved less successful, though. Breckinridge attempted to build lines connecting his real estate holdings near Superior, Wisconsin, led the newly formed Elizabethtown, Lexington, and Big Sandy Railroad Company. With financial backing from Collis Potter Huntington, he became vice president while Huntington served as president. Only a line from Lexington to Mount Sterling was completed before the Panic of 1873 dried up investment. The full proposed line would not be finished until 1881. Well, at least I got finished.
Right. Despite frequent requests, including one from old Ulysses S. Grant himself,
Oh, wow.
Breckinridge steadfastly refused to return to politics, declaring, "I no more feel the political excitements that marked the scenes of my former years than if I were an extinct volcano."
Oh, wow.
Under the 14th Amendment, a 2/3 vote in Congress would have been required for him to hold office due to his obviously being a traitor, but he never seeked it. Speaking as a private citizen in March 1870, he publicly denounced the KKK. And in 1872, he supported a state statute legalizing black testimony against whites in court.
Fuck yeah.
Look at this guy.
Right. Well,
I wonder they blasted him like they did Longstreet.
By 1873, Breckinridge's health, began to fail. He described his condition as pleuropneumonia and repeated surgeries, along with visits to New York coast and the Virginia mountains, failed to improve his health. In May of 1875, he consulted surgeons Louis Sire and Samuel Gross, who diagnosed cirrhosis caused by wartime liver injuries. More immediately dangerous was the fluid that was filling 2/3 of his one lung. 11th of May, Sire attempted to drain the fluid through an artificial opening, only partially completing the procedure. Though some relief was achieved, Breckinridge completed his will with the help of James Beck and Frank Hunt. Damn.
He said, "I'm almost gone, guys." A second surgery, May 17th, provided temporary relief, but by the afternoon, his condition rapidly deteriorated. At approximately 5:45 p.m., John C. Breckinridge, once Vice President of the United States, Confederate General, and Secretary of War, passed away at the age of 54. His longtime friend and Confederate comrade, Basil Duke, he led the funeral procession to Lexington Cemetery, where Breckinridge was laid to rest, closing the final chapter on a life defined by ambition, loyalty, and upheaval.
Oh, wow. Wow. As a military commander, Breckinridge earned the respect of many of his Confederate peers. George Edgar, a fellow officer, wrote, General Breckinridge had few, if any, superiors on the field of battle. Besides being a man of wonderful courage, he had a keen eye to discern the strong and weak points of the enemy's position, skill in using his forces to the best advantage, and a celerity of movement, which reminded me of Jackson. Oh, quote, unquote. Yet public opinion in Breckinridge remained deeply divided. 20th of May, 1875, the Louisville Courier-Journal lauded him as a truly representative of rebellion as an actual force and its underlying causes. Well, in contrast, the North remembered him harshly. A premature 1863 New York Times obituary, again, branded him one of the basest and wickedest of traitors.
Okay.
Wow.
Breckinridge's strengths extended beyond the battlefield, too. He was renowned for his dignity, integrity, and tall, graceful, handsome appearance. His cordial manner, pleasing voice, and eloquent speech won admiration from soldiers, voters, and women. Many hailed him as the very personification of Kentucky chivalry. Observers often remarked, "A most noble-looking man, a ladies' man. Such piercing blue eyes I never saw before. His very looks show his superiority over most men." Whatever. Right. Breckinridge's legacy endures in towns and monuments named in his honor, as you might think. Across the country, the towns of Breckinridge in Minnesota, Missouri, Texas, and Colorado were named after him. Oh. The Colorado town changed the spelling of its name after he joined the Confederacy, though. Oh. He already had a town named after him when he was before the Confederacy?
Vice president,
I guess. Oh, it's Breckinridge, E-N instead of I-N. All these towns are.
Right.
Fort Breckinridge in the Arizona Territory, established between 1860 and 65, obviously honored the vice president, though during the Civil War it was temporarily renamed to Fort Stanford after California Governor Leland Stanford, and later became Camp Grant. Camp Grant. For a period, Lyon County, Kansas was known as Breckinridge County as well.
Oh, fantastic. Modern culture. Breckinridge was portrayed by Jason Isaacs in the 2014 film Field of Lost Shoes, which depicted the Battle of New Market.
Sure did.
Memorials to him have also been part of public spaces. A statue placed at Fayette County Courthouse lawn, Lexington, 1887. November 2015, amid discussions over Civil War commemoration, the Urban County Arts Review Board recommended removing the statue, and one of John Hunt Morgan as well. Historian Amy Morrell Taylor of the University of Kentucky noted that statues were not and have ever been neutral representations of the Civil War past, but instead they are embodiments of a racially charged post-war interpretation of it. Really? The Breckinridge Memorial was relocated to Lexington Cemetery in July of 2018. At least they put it up somewhere else. Right. Funded by private donations and placed in his family's burial area in Section G, securing his place in history and memory.
And memory.
John C. Breckinridge.
Yeah, all right, Johnny boy. That was a long one. What else can we say that hasn't been said in the episode?
Right.
Probably the biggest traitor of the Union on either side.
I would say.
Although Jefferson Davis was a Secretary of War and all that shit for the United States as well. But a vice president? I mean, come on, dude. I mean, come on.
Right. I mean,
that'd be like Kamala Harris. Oh, wait. That would definitely happen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's John C. Breckinridge. Next week, we'll be right back at it with another Union guy.
No.
Definitely not going to be Sherman or Sheridan because I can't be doing two-hour episodes in a row. It's just crazy.
Right. Those guys are freaking insane.
Either way, let's see.
Maybe Crittenden.
Maybe Crittenden or George Crook. Actually, maybe next week we'll do Henry Halleck.
Oh.
He's been a long time coming. One of the highest ranked guys.
McPherson, Montgomery.
Yeah, but Halleck's a high guy. He's a high guy.
We got John Pope.
We got everybody. We got Schofield, Sedgwick, Seward, Sheridan, Sherman, Shields, Sibley, Siegel, Slocum, Stoneman, Sumner. Lots. But yeah, either way, we're back next week. So make sure you're liking, subscribing, sharing this with your friends, giving us a review, give us a comment, like, thumbs up, all the other stuff. And we'll be back next week for more Behind the Battles of the American Civil War, where the Mother Michigan is.